Live events in the online coaching and online education industry are back, but the model has definitely changed. What we are seeing work right now in 2026 is much different than what was working back in 2024, 2023, and definitely pre 2020. But what's fascinating is we are seeing such a high demand for live events right now, both for consumers. So people are seeking out in person communities and events to join and participate in, but also from the founders. We take so many discovery and sales calls every single week where people are looking to integrate live events into their business model because they want to position themselves against the rise of AI. They want to invest in their community and build stronger relationships and more trust with their audience. They want to use it as a vehicle for client acquisition and ascension. Whatever the objectives are, we are seeing such a high demand both from consumers and founders to participate in this live events wave that we are seeing. And my entire objective for this video is if you run an online education company, an online community, an online coaching business, and you're either currently hosting live events and they are already integrated into your business, or you have hopes to start hosting live events at some point in the future, I just want to set you up for success and let you know what we are seeing work right now in 2026. Because one of the biggest mistakes you can make when you are either currently hosting live events or looking to integrate live events into your business in the future is to try and replicate an outdated model, because your audience will notice, your people will notice, the market will notice, and it will not set you up for success. So my whole objective for this video is to let you know what we are seeing work in 2026 so that you can hopefully improve your events and make sure they are staying up with the times. Now that all that's taken care of, let's dive into, first of all, who am I? So my name is Andy Monroe. I'm the co-founder of Bullish Events. At Bullish Events, we help online education business owners, online coaches, online community owners leverage live in-person events to grow their communities, their audiences, their authority, their revenue. Whatever the objectives are, people come to us to help them integrate live events into their business. And we've been able to generate over $10.7 million in direct revenue from live in-person events. We've had over 6,500 attendees come through our in-person events, and through all of that, we've been able to maintain a attendee satisfaction score, an average attendee satisfaction score of 4.75 out of 5. Now, this is me and my business partner right here. This is Ethan. This is us live in the game, boots on the ground. Yeah, do a lot of events together, and it's been a blast so far. And if you guys want to see any of the case studies on these events, I know a lot of people like to hide the results that they've gotten. On bullishevents.com, you can go and check out case studies on a lot of our events. It breaks down the qualitative and quantitative results from the events, the objectives that the client had for us, what we actually did at the events, as well as some pictures. So if you want to check out some of our case studies, you can go to bullishevents.com. But let's jump into the video. So the first thing that we're seeing work really well right now in the live events industry is small events over big events. And this is it's a pain point for sure, and a lot of people aren't really grasping this, because one thing that we have to do all the time when we're talking to potential clients or we're onboarding new clients is we have to kind of talk them off a ledge. You know, people come to us and they're like, hey, I want to do a live event, but I don't think I can fill the room with like 500 people. And I'm like, why do you want to fill the room with 500 people? Like, what's the reason behind that? And people don't really ever have an answer except for, I don't want my event to look small. But what people don't understand is that small events could be extremely advantageous, and they're typically preferred in a better experience for both the founder, the host, the one that's hosting the events, as well as the attendees, the ones that are at the event and participating in them. So what we see working really well right now is events in the 10 to 50 attendee range. They are more intimate, they're easier to connect, they are just an overall better experience. And just imagine you're going to an event and there's a 500-person event and there's a 30-person event. You're going to be able to meet every single person at that 30-person event and establish a very solid relationship with them, versus the 500-person event where you're only going to meet a very small fraction of the room. And it's just much more variable. It's much more up to chance if the experience will be good. So when you host a nice, intimate event, it's just much more guaranteed to create a better experience for both the event host and the attendees. It also allows us to personalize the content to who is in the room. You know, when we take on a client and we're doing an event in this 10 to 50 attendee range, we can get very hyper personalized with the content that we are designing. And we typically take onboarding calls with every single attendee that's going to be going into this event. We understand their pain points, you know, what their current situation is, what their desired outcome is, what they're looking to get out of the event, what they don't like to see in events. We get all this information and we use it to design the event to make sure that it's matching the pain points and the desires and the dream outcome of everyone that's in the room. And that's something that you just can't really do when you are hosting a 500 person or even like a 100 person event. You can get averages, you can collect data and kind of find the averages in the room and try your best to cater the event content to who's in the room, but you can do it so much better when it's at a small level like this 10 to 50 attendee range. So it allows us just to get very hyper personalized with the content that we're designing. Like I said, ability to connect with each attendee, the community aspect of these events is just much stronger, and also see better conversions at small events as well, which is fascinating. And here are a few examples of smaller events. So this is actually an event we did with Greg Eisenberg right here. And this was a 26-person event, I believe. And that's all we wanted. We didn't want this to be a big event. We wanted 25 to 30 founders in the room. Everyone in this room is very high level. That's one thing I didn't mention up here in this list of benefits, or as like why intimate events work so well, is you can really control the quality of who's in the room. So every single person that was in this room at this event had to apply to be there. The ticket was, I believe, around $5,500. So it was a pretty high ticket event in terms of event. Like, we weren't selling a ticket for a couple $100. So it was a pretty high ticket, and everyone in this room had to have a pre-existing business that was generating revenue, ideally around 50K a month. Most of the people in here were in the 50 to 100K a month, a few more, a few less, but people had to have a real established business and they had to apply. We had to approve their application. So it was very exclusive and very intimate. We weren't letting anybody into this event. It was a very specific avatar that we were targeting. And when you do smaller, more intimate events, you have much more control on the quality process of who's in the room. Actually pay a lot of attention to who's applying and make sure that everyone that is in the room is meant to be in the room. So this is just an example of one of the smaller, more intimate events that we have done so far in 2026. Now, moving on to point number 2 of what we're seeing work right now in the industry is less hotels, resorts, and conference centers. When I got my start in the events industry, pretty much all my events were at resorts and hotels, which makes sense. It's kind of where everyone thinks that you should be hosting these events, but I just can't stand the price gouging anymore. They're too expensive. They're usually not a very good experience. They're usually pretty ugly. The people aren't usually very good to work with, and there are so many other options out there that you can literally cut your cost in half at your event if you do it right. So these venues have been price gouging for years. It's outrageously expensive. Aren't actively in the events industry, if you aren't like in my position where we're hosting 2 to 3 events per month and we're always talking to vendors and always getting proposals and always talking to different venues, I just start to see this crazy consistency and outrageous pricing from these hotels, conference centers, and traditional venues, which is just unfortunate to see. When I get quotes, they are usually 4 to 5 times higher than the partners that I usually work with. So I'll just do this for fun. If I'm working with, if I'm doing an event with a client, and let's say we're doing an event at a hotel or a resort, I will usually get quotes from their in-house, typically Encore team, the team that does all their audio visual and their production, and I'll get quotes from my partners, and the Encore quotes are usually 4 to 5 times higher than my partners' quotes for the exact same thing. And I'm like, this makes absolutely no sense. Very frustrating. So I can't remember the last time I used Encore to do production or audio visual for an event, just because of how expensive it is and how unethical it is, in my opinion. They're usually boring. Hotel, conference rooms, and convention centers are usually not very aesthetic. They're usually boring. There's no windows. They're usually hot. It's not a place where the creative juices can really get flowing. So they're boring. There's way better F&B options when you don't use a traditional venue, and there's also just more freedom. When you go to a hotel, you usually have to use their in-house F&B. It's usually incredibly expensive. It's usually not very good. But when you go and do an event at an Airbnb or a peer space venue or just a traditional or just an event venue, one that's not attached to a hotel, usually allow you to bring in your own food and beverage, and it's a much better experience, and you have much more freedom to do whatever you want with your experience holistically, which is always nice. And like I said, Airbnb, Peerspace, Vrbo, there's a lot of places to look just to get creative and to pick, to get other options rather than just going to your traditional hotel or resort or convention center. So let's see. These are 2 examples of events that we did that weren't in traditional hotels and conference centers. This is one that we did a few weeks ago in Denver. I believe this was at a coffee shop, and it was actually a really cool environment for the event. There was these big windows, or like there, you can see them right here. They're kind of like garage doors that you could pull up. We didn't pull it up because it was kind of cold in Denver, Colorado, but it was cool. You could see outside. It was very creative and free flowing. You didn't feel like you were condensed in this little box with no windows. And this one on the right was actually at a log cabin in Alaska. And if you just think about it, would you rather be in a boring old hotel room, with no windows, gray walls, terrible AC, terrible airflow, or would you rather be on a deck of a log cabin in Alaska in the sun with the breeze blowing and the fresh air? We don't really want to do events at convention centers anymore or at hotels or resorts. I don't like it. I don't like how expensive it is, and I think we can get a much better experience going somewhere else. Like the last 3 or 4 events we've done have all been at Airbnbs, like these big Airbnb mansions that we'll rent out. And even though we're renting out a mansion, it's still typically cheaper than going to a hotel or to a convention center because of all the taxes and the service charges and the F&B taxes and everything that comes along with it. If we just spend more money on an Airbnb and we hire our own private chef and we just control everything, it's actually way more expensive to do the other route of going through a hotel than it is to go through that route. So very interesting, but this is what we're seeing work right now in 2026. Number 3, less teaching, more doing. Now, I know a lot of events, like the typical event model is you just go and you assemble all these different speakers. Everybody gives their keynote presentation. It's a very passive experience from the audience. They just sit there and they take notes and they just listen, and that's about it. There's no real doing. There's no implementation. There's no shift from passive to active, and we are seeing that as a dying model right now in 2026. And pretty much all of our events have been very, very focused on more doing and less teaching. One is becoming less and less valuable. This is kind of like a dead point at this point. Everyone understands this, with how AI is getting. Just information alone, it's still valuable. Like I'm not saying that the info industry is dead yet, but information is becoming less and less valuable as AI becomes more and more advanced. And we've shifted our strategy to focus on implementation and connection. So now when we go to an event, let me see, I think I cover it right here. Yeah, right here. Covering 6 to 8 topics, we cut it down to 2 to 4, so we make it very, very targeted, and we identify the 2 to 4 main pain points in the room, and we focus everything around them and make sure that the attendees are actually implementing in real time. What we use for this is step 1, frame. So you want to frame the session, make sure that you properly frame why they are going to be doing what they're going to be doing and why it's important for them to participate and pay attention. Then we go into the teaching, and then we go into personal reflection, then we go into small group workshops and the large group discussion, and then they end that session with a deliverable. So you can see frame, teaching, personal reflection, small group workshop, large group discussion, deliverable. That's the framework that we use for most of our sessions. And I mentioned connection here too. This is one thing right here. So implementation and connection. So we really try to facilitate as much connection as possible. Another thing that most events do, the traditional event model, is, like the networking part of the event is it's a happy hour. Like go get a drink, go talk to people. It's gonna be super fun. You can connect with everyone in the room. But that really only caters to extroverts, like people that are good at going up and approaching somebody and starting a conversation. Like 50 to 60% of the people in the room. So what we do now is we try to facilitate as much connection as possible and take that heavy lift off the attendees and make the connection as easy as possible. And there's a lot of creative ways you can do that. Examples of less teaching, more doing. This is an event that we did a few weeks ago, actually about a month ago in Florida. And you can see this group is in a breakout. They are taking an issue or a problem at the event. That we gave them a prompt and they're working on it together in a group. And then right here, the event that we did at Fun Launch, where this guy is actually working through his waterfall structure in real time with the other attendees and coaches in the room. So we are much more focused on implementation rather than information in our events these days. Moving on to number 4. Integrated sponsors. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the traditional sponsorship strategy where everyone has a booth and they're just sitting there on the outside of the event, or maybe they're in the lobby or the area outside of the conference room, and all the sponsors are just trying to poach as many attendees as possible. They're being very transactional. They're trying to flag people down. It's not a very enjoyable experience for both the sponsor, the event host, and the attendees. I don't really know why people do it like this. It seems like a pretty obvious model that needs to change, and we are seeing a change right now. So we typically roll with no more booth setups where the sponsors have to hunt down attendees. Like booths that by themselves aren't bad, but when they are set up in a way where they have to go and track down attendees and they have to be very super transactional and like grab as many attendees as possible, and like I said, like poaching attendees, it's not very enjoyable. So we kind of eradicated that model from our strategy, and we actually make sponsors a part of the event. We integrate them into the experience so they're actually adding value to the attendees instead of just being value extractors the entire time. We get creative when we build out sponsorship offers. The old model is you just give the sponsor 3 different options. Hey, this is my bronze, my silver, my gold package. Like, you can pick whatever one you want. Now we give them guidelines. Like, hey, here's what's on the table for you to follow. Like, you can pick some of these stuff, you can pick some of it, you can pick all of it, you can pick none of it. But we're also open to suggestions, and we create a sponsorship package that is beneficial for both the sponsor, the event host, and the attendees. Make sure that nobody is kind of being left out of the picture. So that's our sponsorship strategy right now in 2026. And an example of this is actually an event that we did with the Home Service Academy. This is one of the sponsors, and he gave one of the best workshops of the entire event. Like, he led the entire room through a workshop, and it was better than most of the speakers that we had come in that weren't sponsors. So we made him a huge part of the event. People loved it. He was rated super high on the survey as like the favorite parts of the event. So we actually made this sponsor a part of the event, which is awesome to see. Now, the last point I'm gonna bring up, number 5 of what we're seeing work really well in 2026 right now when it comes to live events, is selling without selling. And this one specifically I know is gonna ruffle some feathers, because there's a lot of people out there that talk about live events, and they talk about how you have to use all these crazy high pressure sales tactics, and you have to pre-frame the room so strategically and use these very specific words, and you have to construct your offer in a very specific way, and you have to do this whole 90-minute sales presentation, and you have to sell from stage and close the room. This is a model that we're seeing not work really well right now in 2026, or at least I'll say maybe that model is still working, but we're seeing another way working that our clients are more receptive to, that just feels a lot better. That's called selling without selling. So looks like I got this arrow attached to this black box. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this arrow. There we go. So if your event is designed properly, your offer should just be a simple invitation to take the next step, a logical next move. So let's say somebody's journey in your world is getting from 1 to 10. Step 1 is a very beginner, 10 is, the dream outcome in your industry. And let's say your event gets your people from 1 to 3. You get those first 3 steps, those first 3 boxes are checked. Your offer should get them from 3 to 10. So it should be that next logical next step. It's like, okay, there's nothing else in the world that would make sense then for me to take this invitation into this offer and work with you further. That's how the event and the offer should relate to each other at live events, and sometimes no offer at all. We had a client that we did an event with back in November, and we were able to generate around $85,000 in revenue from that event. I think it actually might be an example down here. Is it? Yeah, the one on the right. I'll dive into it a little bit more later. But essentially, just to give you like a little sneak peek, we were able to generate $85,000 in revenue, and we didn't pitch from stage a single time. Like, people just enjoyed the event so much, they just came up to us after, or at some point in the in between. They're like, hey, like, who can I talk to either renew or to purchase, like, to work with you guys further. It was really cool to see like that much revenue come in without even doing a single pitch, and that's because the event was so valuable. And one thing, let me see if I have this as a bullet point. No, I don't. So one thing that we like to view events as a test drive, like when people go and attend an event for yours and your event is focused on ascending clients up your value ladder, they're taking a test drive with you and your brand. And if the test drive goes really well, the car is perfect, it drives well, it's, the acceleration is awesome, it's exactly what they're looking for, it provides a lot of value to them, then it's a no-brainer to buy the car. But if you do the test drive and you only get to experience a little bit of it, they hold off a lot, it's not very valuable, they let you drive around the block and that's it, they only let you go under 25 miles per hour. They don't let you get the full experience of the car. They don't let you maximize the value that you would receive. Then that's when you're going to need to use some high pressure sales tactics, because the trust really isn't there. They're like, hey, I don't know if I really like this. I didn't really get to see the full value, and that's where you have to deploy all these crazy sales tactics. But if you just let them drive the car and let them receive the full value and have a really good experience with the test drive, then it's an easier sell and it's a no-brainer to buy the car. And that's how we see events as well. People are taking a test drive with your brand, and if you deliver a ton of value and you serve your face off and the event is an amazing experience, it's a no-brainer that they're going to want to keep working with you. But if you hold back information, if you don't serve them, if you give them little like tidbits of information, then it's going to be a lot harder of a sell. And that's usually why people have to deploy these high pressure sales tactics. It's like exact tactics are only needed when trust isn't established with the attendees. And if you just design an amazing transformational event where you get lots of value for the attendees and the trust is really there, you don't really have to use the high pressure sales tactics. And it still needs to be a good offer. Obviously, you can't design like a completely trash offer and expect people to buy it. So we do work with our clients to design a good offer, but it doesn't have to be delivered in such a high pressure sales way. examples of this working. So on the right, like I said, this is the client we worked with, the Home Service Academy. We were able to generate over $85,000 in revenue from this event without doing a single offer from stage. And it's just because the event was just so valuable that people wanted to work with the Home Service Academy further after the event. And then this is like one of our clients' counterpart. And again, there was an offer, but it was an absolutely no-brainer offer. It was actually, we gave them 30-day free trial to what the offer was. So it was like, hey, if you came to this event, you're here right now. You have 30 days to work with us for free. We'll do all this stuff for you. It's as if you would join us for this offer right now. We'll deliver all the value from the offer. And then in 30 days, if we got results for you and you liked it, you can stay in, or not, no worries. And we were able to generate over $500,000 in revenue for our client with this strategy. And it was just such a simple, straightforward offer. I think we spent like 5 minutes presenting this to the group. The rest of it was just focused on value and implementation and connection. And people enjoyed it so much, and it was so valuable for them that they're like, yeah, of course I want to work with this guy after. So it's kind of breaking all of the rules of traditional events and how you sell at events, but we're just seeing this work really well right now in 2026. Have for this video, but if you run your own online coaching business, your own online community, or you're just in the online education industry or the online information industry, I'm still looking for a work currently hosting your own live events, or you want to start hosting your live events at some point in the future. Click the link down below in the description. We have an application. You can fill it out, and if it looks like it would be a good fit, we can jump on a call. If not, no worries. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.